live. I am joined by Dr. Melinda Joy Mingo. How are you, Doc?
I'm fantastic, and even more so, I'm so happy to be here with you and those who will be listening and looking.
No,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you for definitely spending some time here today with us and talking a little bit about your journey. The title for those, again, I want to welcome everyone to Sound Off. This is episode 5 with Dr. Melinda Joy Mingo. And as you see, the theme being from homeless to hopeful. You've had quite a journey, Dr. Mingo. Let's go back before you were the doctor. Let's just go right to it. When it was just
Yeah.
talk to me about this because I see we have a book we want to share. We want to talk about some things you're doing, and at
Yeah.
face value, Dr. Mingo, everything's great. You got a book, you're online, like you're up there, you're living good. You got the deluxe apartment in the sky, and life is great.
Ugh,
Did it
yeah.
start? But it's always been like that, right? Come on now.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not even quite like that now. But yeah, no, thank you. So, I would just have to say, my time here is going to be very genuine, very open, and I know that's what you want. And I would just say, from homeless to hopeful, because I grew up in such a turbulent environment. I'm from Chicago, from a project community called the Cabrini Green Community, and some people might remember it if they're a little older. Good Times, JJ, all of that. We
Hmm.
actually filmed. They actually filmed in one of the apartments.
Oh wow.
So yeah. So I grew up in Gary, Indiana, and Chicago, and I would say, life is just interesting at best. That's the word I could say. Because a lot of times I tell people it's easy to see the end result of where someone is or where we think they are. And a lot of times it's still not that. What we see is still not it. But I just
And
always,
Dr. Mingo, but I want to jump in and honor what you just said because you said something I think a lot of individuals, I don't want them to miss that, which is
yes,
being real and vulnerable and open. Because it's
yes.
easy, right, to put up the post and the picture and the stories of
Mm-mm,
success, but no one sees like the glacier, all that's under that. No one sees just all
mm-mm,
the work that has taken someone to get to the position they're in. So it's easy to
mm-mm.
kind of miss, and get confused with what their appearances are versus the history.
Yes.
So I just want to call that out because I think it's a lesson for many. Our journey in trying to speak truth and spread positivity and
Mm-hmm.
be the change also starts with
Yeah.
being real that it wasn't always this way.
Oh no, no, and the reason why is thank you. I started there is because I can go back, and I will share quickly, about how I got to this point. But I have to say this here that I think one of the things for me that I've learned is I need to sit at the feet of my own lived experiences. I can look at other people and learn, but I've learned so much from my own life, from the pain I've gone through. Everything hasn't been painful, but a lot of it has. And even this book here, I mean, it looks so, yeah, there's a big thing all on the website now, and there's a book. I wrote this book while I was homeless. I was sleeping in my car part of the time in a Walmart parking lot, David.
Hold on,
Just
hold on, hold on, hold on, stop it. You're not just going to drop that and make it seem like we're just going to let you keep on talking now. I have to interject respectfully, Dr. Mingo.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
A book written, where did you say? In your office? Or the studio? What?
No, this book here, I was invited to write the book when I was doing okay. I was teaching at a school, and during the course of that, I'm like, things happen. Let's be real. It doesn't make you a less valuable person, but I became homeless right in the middle of writing this book. And so part of that is a journey of abrupt situational poverty where you never quite get up to a point, and all it takes is one thing to happen, one thing, five busted tires and you back down again. And so anyway, it's the truth. Credit
Hmm.
score goes down and you can't get an apartment and all that
One
stuff.
decision that pretty much sets
One.
off a chain reaction. But there's
Yeah.
something you said though that I wanted to call out as well, which you said is sitting at the own feet of your journey and understanding and
Uh-huh.
appreciating that. And I don't think many individuals are able to even think of that because many who may be seeing this or watching this have been through difficult times. They've
Yeah.
experienced great turmoil. And for all intents and purposes, they'll never self reflect on the goodness of that
Uh-huh.
journey and what they've been able to accomplish but I know that others would see it and say, you know, what so and so has done has been amazing, even though they may not see it. But can you talk? Because I want to go back and just talk a little bit about kind of how you got to that stage of being in that car, you know, in a Walmart parking lot. But today, for you to be able to reflect to the fact of, I just want you to kind of just go back to that point of kind of sitting at the feet of your own experiences, because I think there's a power in that for many that would not identify that the experiences that they have lived really have paved the way to their reality today. And in a sense, you almost have to kind of honor and understand that it took all the things you went through for today for us to have this conversation, for that book to be written, and potentially for that person out there who feels that 80% of their journey has been turmoil and now they got 20, but is it even worth it at this point? It's like, no, sitting at the foot of that journey. Can you just say that one more time? Because I think someone definitely needs to hear that piece.
Yes, I believe that one of the most powerful lessons that we have in life is when we're able to sit at the feet of our own lived experiences. Because what I believe is that, and I use this term, a lot of people can see the glory, but very few know the story.
Mm. A lot of
And
people can see the glory.
yeah,
Very
all the
few see the
very
story.
few. Very few see the story. And the reason why is because a lot of times we don't allow people to see the story because we're tired. We don't want to be judged. You know, when you're doing good, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, all of this here. And so to be genuine, David, to be authentic and transparent and to say, yeah, I have a master's degree and I'm sleeping in my car.
So take me to that point. So you came from humble beginnings in Chicago, arguably some landmark right locations via you know good times and so forth. But nonetheless, humble beginnings, and you know life continues. You're in a place now where you have a master's. You're teaching. You're living life. Life takes a turn, and you end up now in a homeless situation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I want to preface it with this because when I said about living, you know, and learning at your own experiences. So in my book, I was homeless for a year when I was in Chicago, and a lot of that was just the extreme poverty that I grew up in. My father was killed early on. I was given away to a family. I walked through just a lot of stuff. But anyway,
But I want to honor that too because
yeah.
all those things, like first of all, if someone loses their father, for many, that's it.
Mhm.
They may not recover. Being abandoned, for many, that's it. They cannot
Yeah.
recover. So again, honoring the journey that you know, to your point of sitting at the foot of that, I think are key points because the highlight is though you know you had a loss in the family, though you had instances of being neglected or abandoned, and all the things that you know were happening, there's still something where you kept pushing. So
Yeah.
I guess what I want to find out, what I want to kind of call out, because again, it's really about the high points of those
Mhm.
experiences. Because sometimes we get
Yeah.
stuck in the negativity, but
Right.
arguably you had a handful of things before the Walmart parking lot. They got you to a
Oh,
place, correct, of some
oh,
stability, and then yet again, life knocked you down and homelessness.
yeah. Yeah, I had a bucket full of stuff. I mean, to be honest, you know, and I didn't have value and worth for myself as a African American woman or any of that because of where I grew up and stuff. So I was already on a journey before I even got to the parking lot. And part of that was I've never been one to have a lot of financial stability. And so when we talk about you know, I do a lot of sharing about abrupt and situational poverty that you can be okay and something happens. So I had all that stuff, but the Walmart parking lot thing, that was just a culmination of a lot of things. My husband served in the military for some years, and we moved here. I was married. We moved to Colorado Springs from Gary, Indiana, just wanting a new life. He was out of the military. We wanted a new life. Felt that it would just kind of be a breath of fresh air. And we got here to Colorado Springs, and 2 months after being in the city, my husband came out of the bedroom in a pool of blood while I was dressed up, getting ready to go for an interview as a teacher, on his hands and knees crawling. And I had heels and a suit on. And anyway, he was whisked away to a hospital. They said he had liver disease, but he'd be okay. And to fast forward that was 2 months of being in this city with no support, not knowing anyone, wanting a new life, laying on the floor, just excited. And 4 months to the date of living in Colorado Springs, a doctor said, your husband has 2 years to live. He has terminal
Oh,
cancer. So you probably have 2 years with your husband. And so just prepare for that. So there it is. I'm stunned. I lose everything. In the midst of that, I get evicted here. My husband's
so
in hospice.
so he's in a hospice. Life begins. The focus obviously is just his final
Yep.
time and days here.
Mhm.
Obviously, things begin to happen. The domino
Yeah.
effects. Then
Domino effect.
enter now losing right what you kind of saved up, like to move forward. This new chapter
Yeah.
ends up being a complete disaster for all
Mhm.
intents and purposes. At this point,
Complete.
you were teaching as well, correct?
No, I never got to it. The day that my husband came around the corner, I was on my way to a teaching interview.
So you
Never
so
made it.
so 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 my point being
Uh-huh.
all the turmoils of life, and here you are now, Colorado Springs. You're about to take the step forward. You've been to school. You're gonna go get this interview. We're gonna make it. And
Yep.
literally, as you're about to go down this journey,
Yes.
here comes your husband crawling in the pool of life.
Crawling.
And fast
Yep.
forward begins the diagnosis, the
Uh-huh.
terminal diagnosis, all that comes with that, the psychological toll, the
Yes.
financial toll, life work
Yes.
obviously goes out the window. Everything I'm sure
Uh-huh.
begins to get depleted. All these different things are going on during this time.
All of that. And the reality is, I share with people, when I think about the whole agony of depression that I went through and mental agony, I realize something, that sometimes we get shamed because of an experience that we go through, and we don't need to. Because, we grow up hearing shame on you. And I just take it back and say, shame off you. We go through things in life, and
I
we,
need you to say that again, Dr. Mingo, because when you drop these nuggets, you can't just think you're gonna keep talking. I got to bring you back. Say that one more time. Say you said not shame on you. What?
yeah, what does society say? This means success and all this. And so if you don't do that, then the
Mm-hmm.
first thing is shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, let's roll that back. What about shame off you? That there's
Mm-hmm.
things that happen in life. Even you could try, this, David. You can do the best that you can do and try the best that you can, and things happen. And then we become shame-based people. We don't want people to know we're struggling with depression. We don't want people to know we're going through stuff in life,
I tell you,
right? I'm not saying but
no,
I'm
no, no,
just,
no, no. It's no, we do, especially, and I would
yeah.
add to that in the veteran community, especially,
Mhm.
you have individuals that have been trained and indoctrinated in a mental fortitude and intestinal fortitude to be able to deal with adversity. And then the day comes when you no longer need to deploy those skill sets, but your body's hardwired to keep doing that.
Yes,
And the
yes,
reality is that depression does sink in for some, anxiety and so and so on. And to your point, it becomes a I don't want to be seen this way, right? Because I don't want to be shamed and so forth. So I think it's very powerful to that concept of not shame on you, but shame off of you. I would
yes.
parallel this to those out there listening right now, especially our veterans. Um, if you get caught out there in a storm, the storm is not you. You just got caught up in it. But eventually, you seek shelter. You come inside, you dry off, and you guess what? You take that water off of you. So to the same thing, things happen that some would say, to Dr. Mingo's point, shame on you. No, take that shame off of you. Because again, what is that accomplishing? And again, I want to call that out because I think what I'm detecting here are the building blocks of the resiliency that has this conversation happening today. Because people, again, they can see the journey, but what I'm calling out is understand for those listening that mental tactical thing, not just hey, be positive, everything's gonna be all right. No, let's get tactical. Literally, I am in shame right now, and the concept that I am going to today embrace and try to act on is shame off of
Yes,
this. That's
right.
powerful.
Yeah, because again, we always talk about fake it till you make it. I can't stand it. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to fake anything till I make it. I'm trying to be real so I can be healed.
Mm.
That's my
Oh,
that's
come on
my
now, say it one more time because somebody's
um
looking away.
yeah, I'm just like, no, we try to fake it till we make it, but when that I'm trying to be real so I can be healed, because
Mm.
it's painful to fake it. It's painful. And for me, when I think about moving to a new city, and then all of a sudden a few months here that my husband has 2 years to live and to start preparing for that. And he dies 2 weeks after the diagnosis.
Oh,
Didn't even, didn't even live a month later. 2 weeks after the
so
diagnosis,
two weeks ago. So basically,
two
in the
weeks,
span of 2 weeks,
in the span of two weeks,
you
he's gone.
wake up ready to tackle the world. I am here. I am ready. I am fierce. I'm gonna crush this interview, and we're gonna make it. And literally, you can't even get out the door as this begins to happen. And 2 weeks later, it is a complete 180.
Well, a little bit more. So it was a few months after that we were in hospice. It was 4 months. But when I got the diagnosis that my husband had 2 years to live, he died literally 2 weeks after that. So in a span of 5 months, he was gone
Wow. So
here in
five
Colorado.
five 5 months from
5 months.
moving to everything being completely different.
And giving up everything, letting go of a house, letting go of a secure job to just say, hey, we want a new life. And it was new, totally
Hmm.
by myself. And I say this because that was the most painful time. And I want to share my real story because, people see you and they go, oh, Dr. Mingo, you had a degree. I'm like, you can have more degrees than a thermometer, but that does not solve the pain, that you go
Yes.
through, because I went through severe depression after that. I'm talking about, I even went to a place, a mental health facility in Colorado Springs to see what they could do. And I'm not ashamed to tell my story. I'm not. And people were like, we can't give, there's nothing we can do to help you. I would sit there stoic. I laid on the floor after my husband died for a year. I didn't even have a mind to sleep in a bed.
Wow.
I'm just telling you. I was in
So
an
for so
apartment.
for a
Yeah,
year now, you are on the floor. You just
on
are.
the
You're
floor.
completely in a daze at this point. You're not even
You know,
physically there.
mm-mm, mm-mm. I walked out, and you told me I could be really real on here, and
Really
so
real.
yeah, so I just have to say this here that in Colorado Springs here, I finally mustered up a little strength to do temp work, but I'm by myself in a city with nobody. A husband gone, I bury him at Fort Logan, and I have $20 to my name. I don't have a 401A, K, or J. I have no job. I have nothing. And so I'm here in this city wondering how I'm going to make it. And I just became severely depressed. And I was just like, I'm like, I don't care what I do. This is what I thought. I said, no matter what I do to get ahead, I tried two steps forward, and now I'm beyond two steps backward. I'm gone. And I'm like, I don't see any hope anymore. I just really don't. I said, I don't see how I'm going to come up out of this. I mean, I would walk the streets of Colorado Springs with my house shoes and my just pajamas on, and people would kind of reroute me back into my apartment again. It was really nice. I mean, I was so stoic. There's a time I urinated on a bus at a bus stop, and they
Hmm.
helped me off the bus, but they never shamed me. They never
Mm.
shamed me. They loved me to health, and I just think, I really think community is the key. I just
Yes.
do. So I have to share that part
So
because
so 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 at this point, you're dealing with such crippling depression and everything that can be diagnosed under the sun, and you're just completely almost out of body, right? You know what I
um,
mean? That stoic kind of like when you see a veteran, for example, who's
mhm,
experienced things and they're just completely gone. You can see it in their eyes that they're there, but they're not there because of the
mhm,
trauma and pain that they've dealt with. And I want to
yeah,
be able to I want to call that out because we have people that are suffering, and the reality is that the body, at the end of the day, processes trauma and pain like trauma and pain. It doesn't
mm,
understand, oh, Dr. Mingo's stress and trauma is different than my trauma because I got, I lost a very dear comrade, in service or what have you. No, no, no. The body internally just understands there are
yeah,
stressors and stimulus going
mhm,
on that is pushing me to this point. So I think
mhm,
that the keys of how you were able to begin to process this is helpful because there's someone out there who is in that stoic place. There's someone watching
mhm,
this who knows someone in that stoic place. And I think that there's something you said, and I'm sure you're going to get to it here, but there's something you said about being real to be healed versus faking
yeah,
it till you make it. And I would, I
yes,
would, I like to always kind of have a parallel here and say that if my vehicle was having issues with a muffler, and
mhm,
I go to the car shop and says, "Well, no, I just need some windshield fluid, and just change the AC thing." But the issue is the muffler. I'm trying to fake it. No,
Yeah,
I don't have a muffler issue. Just go ahead
yeah.
and fill the tank up and put some. The
Mhm.
reality is, you're not gonna get healed if you're not real. You're not gonna
Yeah,
get your car fixed to be able to be operational if you don't get
yeah,
real with the fact that no, this engine has got to be fixed. You are missing
yes.
all these pieces. So the human body, to your point, you're being
Hmm.
real and understanding to your, like you said, not shame on you, but shame off of you, right? So let's remove that layer. Now the fact of what exactly is Melinda Joy dealing with? What is your
Yeah,
reality? Here's my reality. I am in a daze. I am walking in the streets pretty much like a vagabond. I am completely a not even a
yeah.
shadow of myself. I am someone else right now. And the reality is, here I am. Fast forward,
Mhm.
now you're in a place where eventually, where we left off. I just wanted to highlight that because I think it
Yeah,
just helps to show the
yeah.
resilience. Because the reality is, and and here's a question I have for you as you're sharing your story. In the middle of all that, why didn't you give up?
Several things. One is because for me, faith is very important, and I have to say this here. I know it's different for everybody, but I have a strong faith, and my faith in God was huge for me, and I unashamedly say that because it was the thing that got me through. Number one, and then the other thing is that I, I don't know. It's like, you know how you have a resiliency in you and you kind of think you don't have it until you start going through the storm. Like you mentioned the storm, and then it kicks into gears, something that says, okay, come on, you can do this. You can make it. Your pain has a mission attached to it. Your pain is going somewhere. You're not just going through stuff to be going through. And I don't know, every day I was like, okay, I'm going to try a little bit more. I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to try to go to another temp job. I'm going to try to go and sit at a bus stop. I'm going to try to just think differently. And each day, as I kept making steps, I started seeing change.
Mm.
Just making
So
steps.
you take it day by day. And again, I think that's, just again little victories. Whether, and for many, they may not have faith, but they may
Yeah,
have community or brotherhood or
yeah.
sisterhood, or even us right here having this conversation. For some,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, there's
Yeah.
something to be said about holding on to something outside of
Mm-hmm.
yourself to at least get
Mm-hmm.
you outside of yourself. Because if
Outside.
you live in here, trust me, the lights are off right now, and you're walking in a daze.
Oh,
So to your point, so you're going through all that, and eventually you wind up in a Walmart. So walk me through how from there you didn't get the teaching job. You have a master's at this point, right? You haven't got a PhD yet, or is that happening at the same time?
no, 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 no. I actually had just started my husband died the first semester that I started my master's program. I
Mm.
started my master's program and he died. And so I was like, okay, that's it. I ain't trying to do any of that. And I did go back, eventually I met some friends here and they was like, MJ, they call me MJ. MJ, go ahead, just do a little one step, one step. You don't like, Martin Luther King, you don't have to see the entire staircase to take one step. And I kept taking one step. And I mean, then I got a job after my master's. I mean, and I don't know, I have to say this. I learned so much about empathy and compassion for people. It was my story, but I realized my story is so similar in every other person's story. It might look a little different, but empathy and compassion for people, even for military, I teach now as a professor, and probably a third or half of my students are in the military.
Mm.
They're either veterans or active duty, and I mean the stories that I hear,
Mm.
and all of it, and I've learned not to look at people according to what they've
Yeah.
accomplished or not accomplished,
Yeah.
just people
So,
have
so
value and worth.
so in your side, so you eventually move on and you get your master's, and then you go on to get your PhD as well. Talk to me a little bit about those steps. Looking at it from a bird's eye view of what those accomplishments did for you personally, of being able to actually complete that thing that you could have walked away from, and then continuing that. How was that? How was that for you to process being able to check that box off?
I think it was just me. I don't know how to say it, but I felt that every step was leading me to something else. that was going to help me to come out of what I was coming out of. And I didn't say this, but back when I lived in Indiana and I first started my bachelor's degree, I got my degree while I was in a shelter. Just a journey that I've gone through. I was in a
Mm-hmm.
homeless shelter studying under a blanket when I would come home at night. I got a special pass. And so I was used to kind of, the stuff you go through in life and all. But every step, whether it was a master's, and I think I wasn't really interested in the master's, except I kept thinking, where is it that I can really not just make an impact, but in society, but where can my life now, all this stuff, all these stories and stuff, what is the audience that I need to be in front of? Where are the people where I can help bring hope? Where I can encourage them that I don't care how it looks. And so it ended up being in the classroom. And then
Mm-hmm.
eventually I started studying for a PhD. And the story with that is, again, I don't know, like I tell my classes, you keep going. I mean, I started my PhD and I was in a really bad accident here in Colorado Springs. Some people were drag racing and they hit me. And so after that, 8 months I couldn't walk. I mean, I found myself in the middle of a street, paramedics working on me, you
So,
know.
so, so to go, so to again, because I want to make sure that people are following along. You experience, a challenging childhood coming up, humble beginnings, but many adversity, loss, neglect, all these things. Then your husband passes away. You're dealing with financial woes. There is homelessness. There is all these highs and lows you're experiencing. You get your
Mm.
master's. You're doing all these things, and then you also have a car accident, and you lose the ability to walk.
Yeah, for 8 months. And so, I mean, I started walking like 15 minutes a day. And then I was in pain therapy at one of the local hospitals here 3 days a week. And the trauma again, I'm like, man, it seems like there's always trauma.
Hmm.
That's the thing. And I tell people, here's something I've learned is that sometimes you don't understand when you say something why it triggers something in someone else, secondary trauma, because you don't know what they've gone through. And just one story sometimes. And I said, don't judge people.
Hmm.
Don't judge them if they feel like, oh, I can't hear that. If you wouldn't mind not sharing it. I'm like, just be sensitive to the fact. If they ask you not to share it, don't share it.
And that's a good
And so,
point, Dr. Mingo. For those that are seeing, we also have the number on top of the crisis line. Should you find yourself in a crisis, these resources are available for you as veterans. Because at the end of the day, we've touched on a lot of things that Dr. Mingo has talked about, and for some, that may be impactful, right? And we want to be able to give folks the ability to take a break, to unplug, and come back to this when they're ready. Because you'll also have to honor the journey on the other side, right?
mhm,
You went through your
yeah,
journey, but as you now are paying it forward, is also understanding someone may not be ready to receive yet
mhm,
that information, but giving them that time because again, it took you a year of walking in a daze to be able to kind of get to a certain point. That's something that you had to come to a place of I'm ready now to take this step. And sometimes I think we neglect that we had our journey, but others we want to help have to get to the
mhm.
place of also their own journey when they're ready. So respecting that boundary, I think it's something key to call out that you mentioned. Um,
Yeah, just to be respectful. I was teaching one day in a class, and there was a guy who was a veteran in there, and he was suffering from PTSD, and I didn't know, but something triggered it that someone said, and he hopped up in the middle of class, and he crawled up under his desk in the college setting, and just sat there in a fetal position. So again, people were kind of, you could see them getting ready to try to do something. And I just told everybody else that you breathe deeply and leave him alone. He's going to be fine. And I could see that he wanted, it was that moment. But it was interesting. The most beautiful thing happened in that classroom is that you could see this veteran. He began to unwind a little bit and he began to say from up under the desk, thank you, Dr. Mingo. Will you just let me sit here? I don't want to leave this room. This is the one room where I feel support. I said, you can sit right there under the desk. And then we had a student go and sit by him under the desk with their books. So that to me is the heart of how we learn, not just how to look at people and say, oh, feel sorry for them. Not that. How do we come alongside them
and that's very
to really show
powerful
us?
because one of the things that we've said before is, I don't play or purport to be a doctor on TV or in real life. That
Yeah.
said, what I do understand is what those moments feel like. And, in the military or in the army specifically, we'll talk about a foxhole, right? A hole in the ground where, you're in there and you're kind of doing, observation of an area. And for many individuals, they're kind of in that dark place in their life. They're in a foxhole. They're in this deep place of darkness and negativity. And sometimes the inclination is to kind of just say these cliche things. When in reality, what someone needs is for someone just to crawl down there and sit with them for that minute. In this instance, it's literally under that desk. Someone sat with that veteran and just stood there and just sat with them. And when that veteran was ready to get up, guess what? I'm here with you as well. And I think there's a power in understanding that for many who don't know or how to get out of that dark place, those of us that have come out from that, like yourself, understand that, hey, he's going to be all right. Just let him sit there for a second.
Mhm.
And sometimes
Yeah.
just go and sit with him because when he's
Yeah.
ready, he'll look and say, or she will look and say, I'm ready to get up out of here now. And the power that we have as being building community, it's saying, you know, Dr. Mingo, I don't know how to work through this. And in turn, you
Mhm.
say, I know the way out
Yes.
of here. And
Yeah.
these are the things that you can begin to look at. And for many out there who are trying to help others, it's not that you now become like the hero for them. It's more saying, hey, I'm giving someone a hand to pick them up and say, hey, these are the things that I had to do to move forward. Here are the resources that you need. And I think that there's power in understanding that for some, they don't know how to let go. And it's not that I'm letting go of you, it's saying, you're out of that bottom of that desk. Now, in
Yeah.
turn, here are the things you need. I'm beside you, but you need, for example, to potentially seek mental health here or seek this
Mhm.
modality over there, but nonetheless be supportive on the side. I'm not the person who will provide that healing or therapy, no modality, but I'm someone who's been through that journey. And I can tell you that if you take one step today, guess what? 5 months, 6 months, a year
Mhm.
from now, you'll be how many steps ahead to the credit of what you've done, no matter what you've been through, you kept taking one step, one step. Take me back to the book now. You literally are in a place of writing this book in a parking lot.
I am, and it's interesting because I didn't start out in the parking lot writing it. When I was actually given the book proposal, I was teaching, and I had an apartment. Was doing okay, and I won't say, but again, I had a house I was renting. But again, I don't know if I could. I say this so passionately about situational and abrupt trauma and how things can just happen like that. And the situation was I needed to leave the house for a situation that happened, and part of that was I didn't have the financial authority under my belt to just go and say, "Oh, here's $2,000. I'm going to go and get another place." I had to work through some things, and part of that was, okay, I'm in my car. And so, yeah, I'm washing up at a bus station. I have friends letting me park in front of their houses because their apartments because they didn't have room. I have folks who have brought me food in the car. But it made me think again. I'm writing a book about the value, worth, and dignity of all people. And can I earnestly believe that everybody has value and worth? If they, no matter what, if they haven't washed up for 2 weeks, if they can't brush their teeth, they still have value, worth, and dignity.
Hmm.
So the book is a lived message. And I tell people that, yeah, it's a book, but I live the stories in the book. And I think that's the main thing is that my experiences, lived experiences, they can't be theorized, they can't be contested. What a person has lived, they have lived. And I share with some people. You might not understand why someone feels the way they do, why they say what they do, whatever. It doesn't matter. Value their value who they are, and their lived experiences are what they are, lived experiences.
And we're gonna go to the book here and bring it up in a second. But I think it's amazing that during the time that this is happening, you wind up in your vehicle, you're working through things because there's different levels of homelessness for some individuals. Sometimes
Uh-huh,
you're in a car, sometimes you're in a shelter. You've experienced a
uh-huh,
variety of that. And even though at the time you may be writing a book or you may be working, you're just in a situation where things are not lined up yet for you to live or live in a home. So in this case, you're homeless, though there are other things you're doing. There's a book that you're writing, there's work that you're doing, but everything is just not lined up correctly.
Mhm.
And I think
Yes.
that goes to show that, there was confidence you had with those that were around you, but I would assume at face there were some maybe who never even knew. They would just see Dr. Mingo show up to teach a class or do a
Mhm.
thing or come in for a review of something, unbeknownst to them that when she got in her car, she got into her home. There was no driving somewhere else. It was a parking lot you drove to,
Mhm.
and that really speaks volumes of just that resiliency of pushing through, regardless of 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and still doing that. I really want to take a quick trip here, Dr. Mingo, to this first website that you have here. Talk me through a little bit about this. Ubuntu, I am because we are. What am I looking at here?
So Ubuntu is it's a South African term. Um, Archbishop Tutu coined the phrase in South Africa that really we are human beings first and foremost. We have different genders, races, ethnicities, all of that, lifestyles. But if we realize that we are human beings down here having an experience together, and there's some things that I can never fully accomplish except I allow you into my life to walk with me, that I build community, that I remember the times where we're in a community in Chicago and someone knocks on the door and say, "Hey, you have 2 eggs? I'm trying to make a cake. I don't have anything. Can you give me a ride somewhere? I don't have bus fare." All of those things. That's community. I just need someone to listen to me. I don't need you to try to heal anything. I don't need
Mm-hmm.
you to try to be a doctor, a judge, a
Yes.
lawyer. I just need you to sit and listen. So that's what the term is. The term says it's like in America right now. We're in a nation because this term came to be. I spent 6 years after I got up on my feet in Vietnam, and I taught at a university in Vietnam. I was sent. I was actually just kind of sponsored to go over there, so I didn't pay anything. But I learned about human worth. Even in Vietnam, I'm like Chicago. There's rats where I grew up. Vietnam, I was in the area. There's rats up here. I learned that people come together over many experiences, David. They come together over pain, but everything's not painful. Sometimes they come together over joy. But the whole thing of I am because we are is how do we build community with people that we normally would not, that we may shy away from, realizing that sometimes we really do have some stories that are pretty similar.
The book, The Colors of Culture, The Beauty of Diverse Friendships. And that really is kind of what you began to explain. So that's why I asked, the meaning of Ubuntu, because it really kind of lends itself to this book that you wrote. I want you to tell me a little bit about it. I want to be able to highlight that we also are going to we have some of these books that you're signing, and we're going to be giving them away. So there'll be some information for that will follow with this as well. So it's also available here on Amazon. So I want to make sure that folks know that they can find that there as well. So the
Thank
colors of
you.
culture, the beauty of diverse friendships. This is a culmination of, to your point, not just nice stories. This is truly an
Mhm.
introspect of your reality, your life, the things you've been through, and the story you're
Yes.
telling. Tell us a little bit about this book and what someone can expect to find in it.
Yeah, so if I quickly say this, that the title itself came about when I was going through all that trauma after my husband died, and I was sleeping on the floor. Every day I would come out of my apartment building in Colorado Springs. There was a couple that befriended me, a Vietnamese couple, could barely speak English, but they sensed the pain that I was in, and every day they would ask me, "Can you come? We just want to make you a bowl of soup. Can we?" They would just I would just go to their apartment. We couldn't even hardly understand each other. I would sit and watch Vietnamese TV. They would bring me something to eat. And so the reason why this book meant so much is because a lot of the people that helped me come out of such a dire place of depression and loneliness and abandonment did not look like me. They were people from different backgrounds, different cultures, from lifestyles, and they came into my life during a time where I really needed community. And so the colors of culture, there's a spectrum that in the eye, when we think of light, there's 40,000 shades of light and color. ocular, from the eye. And so we see only certain things. And so I just wanted to write a book. I'm telling stories about how I've learned to appreciate people across the globe. Um, I've had opportunities since my journey that I talked about to travel the world. I've spent time at an AIDS clinic working in the Sudan, in Ethiopia. I've been in the jungles of South America with people who have nothing to eat in a rainforest, trying to encourage them. I've been to Kenya, Japan. So just using that, I've had a chance to travel the world. And what I realized that no matter where I've traveled around the world, people still need people. And I'm talking about the stories. I do talk about my story in there, my stories about how I didn't value myself, how I didn't see myself as a woman of worth. I was bullied growing up. I mean, my teeth were kicked out. I just had a lot of stuff. And so I talk about a real story and how I've learned to appreciate people in my life.
And I think it's very timely. I want to also highlight how folks can find you. You're also on LinkedIn as Melinda Joy Mingo. To contact you, website is pending and will be coming out soon as well. So we'll have the contact information where you're seeing this to be able to get in contact with her. But the book is the colors of culture, the beauty of diverse friendships. I love this forward here by John Perkins, where he writes, "You need to read The Colors of Culture with an open heart and posture of a learner. The message woven throughout the book of stepping out of our place of comfort and being intentional in building authentic relationships in order to reach diverse people is needed now in our society more than ever before."
And I'm so thankful for that because John Perkins is an amazing national icon. He's a civil rights icon with Martin Luther King, and our paths crossed. And he actually got a copy of my book and said, I love your message. It's real, it's authentic, it's down to earth. Yeah.
Dr. Mingo, there's a parallel here which I love, and that's why I wanted just to let you kind of flow with that. In our community, in the veteran community, I would say we're human beings. The veteran community
Mm-hmm.
is nothing but a snapshot of just a specific demographic that just chose to step up and do something many would not do. That said, there's something that you mentioned of having the ability, going from where you went through to where you're at today, to being able to travel the world and see people in different places. And arguably, for those of us that have traveled, those of us that have seen different lifestyles and different, income levels and all these different things, from extreme poverty to, opulence to a whole other level. That said, the human heart, the human mind is the same no matter where. You have hurt people
Mm-hmm.
who are poor, you have hurt people who are rich. You have small
Yes.
people who are strong, you have big people who are weak.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, the psyche, the emotion, the heart, the spirit, the soul, it's the same. But there's
It's
there's
just,
there's such a power to the things you've mentioned, because one of my thesis when it comes to doing something like this, sound off. What does that mean? It really is us making a conversation with our community. Oftentimes we have networks and shows and things that are really just giving something out or pushing something out, but rarely do we ask someone something and actually have an iterative dialogue, especially with technology, which is why you see the scrolling ticker, comment the branch of service and years that you served. And there's a reason why I only ask those two questions, because I don't care what your job was or your rank.
mm-hmm.
Those
Yeah.
become peacocking things of comparing, like, well, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Mingo, I did this and you did. No, 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 no. We
Mm-hmm.
served. That's a brotherhood we have. We had a community. And sadly, for many veterans, what plagues us is that once you leave service, you don't miss service. You miss the bond.
Mm-hmm.
You miss the community. To your point, the people that you never thought you'd bond with, which are the ones that helped you move forward in so many different ways. And we have stories of those instances, but we don't have today a community. And what you mentioned, I think, is powerful, because one of the things I keep saying is that one thing that we have failed in our veteran community is to truly understand that there's different roles that people play. And I always kind of look at this as a tribe, in the sense that, I remember being that 17 and 18-year-old, kid that wanted to step up and be a warrior and do something. and I did my duty. I did my time, right? I guarded the gate and I did the things that I had to do, for the tribe. But then for many of us comes the time where you have to pass on the tools and you have to put away those things that are for younger men to do and women to do. And there's a disconnect of what happens when that is no longer who you are. You're no longer that warrior. Dr. Mingo, you don't
Mm.
understand. My entire career, my life was supposed to be doing this. And the reality is that whether you serve 4 years, 10 years, or 20 years, the reality is that that chapter will close. Our society, though, has failed in honoring what I have termed to be our elders, which are those that have come, who've done the jobs, who were the sentries, who were the protectors, who now may not be as strong and might be brittle and might be slower, but there's a wisdom inside of them
Yes.
that is needed to be passed on to those that are going to go out there so they understand how best to do something, how to advance the tribe forward, how to learn the lessons of what's happened. So I mentioned that because, to your point, I think there's a power to understanding that even within the veteran community, there are various colors of our culture, and that diversity that we have is the strength. But as we leave service, many of us don't know what to do or how to reconnect with that without having, a comparison or a, go this, go that. When the reality is, we just need to sometimes sit and understand that there's a power and a message to what we have out there. So I love the things you spoke about and the things that you've shared, because the reality is there's someone out there who's gone through extreme trauma, and what's the worth? And no matter what it is they can hold on to, they have the ability to pay it forward. I love the
Mm.
fact of not shame on you, but shame off of you, right?
Yeah.
Not faking it till you make it, but being real to be healed. And
Yeah.
literally what you did was, as we've been talking, you've been dropping those subtle hints that are part of your journey, but it's how today you're able to sit at the foot of your journey and appreciate what you have learned to embrace who you are truly today, which is a strong woman who is a minority, who is someone that has the ability to pay it forward to others as an African American woman. These type of things that I think that many are not able to embrace
Yes.
is part of that journey. So I think there's a power in that because there's someone out there who hasn't sat down to appreciate the journey. And it might sound crazy, but the fact is, everything you've been through, it gave you the ability to save that veteran's life who was under that
Mhm.
desk that one day, who gave you the
Yes.
ability to be able to help that one person and countless many others. And then a step further,
Mm.
you write a book that tells the story, which again, for some, is going to potentially have the ability to give them not only a hope to move forward, but also the ability to see this is the way. Because again, I love the strategic aspect of talking big picture, right? Yes, be positive, mindset, make sure that you look at the glass half full and not half empty. Let's get tactical. Again,
Mhm.
it's not shame on you, but it's shame off of you, right?
Yeah.
It's not literally faking it to making it, it's being real to be healed. And if you start looking at those small gems that we've been kind of highlighting in this conversation, those are the things that if day by day you just take a chance to do a little bit of that. Today I'm going to be real, right? Dr. Mengo, I'm going to go talk, let's say, to my therapist. I'm going to be real today. Because if you
Mhm.
think about it, is we have at times the resources, but things are not working. And the real question is, are you being real? Or are you just going through the motions expecting things to work themselves out? Because the reality is, things did not work themselves out for you, Dr. Mango. You had to be intentional in your devotion to move forward and make things happen. That book did not just write itself. Though you were
Mhm.
in a parking lot in Walmart, you still showed up every day and found a way to get to the place that you were at. So I think there's a power in intention, because sometimes we think things will happen just to us or for us versus making a point to say, I'm going to move an intention and actually accomplish something. So I wanted to really highlight and parallel that because I know there are many who can relate to the struggles. And again, we did a very highlight. We could literally have a conversation just about your Chicago days, just about the
Mm.
point up with your husband and
Yeah.
that period was there. But I think being able to truly look at that entire kaleidoscope of that tapestry that is your life, I think speaks volumes for some to be able to say, I can relate to that. There's something in there that they can walk away. And that's why I asked you, why didn't you give up? Because for some, they're in that point where they may. And really, what I want to ask you, Dr. Mango, at this point is, you knew your why of why you went forward. But the question I have for you, because of what you've been through, is for someone out there who may be watching this who says, Dr. Mango, I get it, but I also lost my husband or my wife. And I don't know if I have the intestinal fortitude. You're a strong woman. You're stronger than I ever could be, Dr. Mango. I couldn't do that. This is it for me. Like, there is no tomorrow. What would you say to that woman, to that man out there who may be in that desperation, in that pain point, that days walking out their house lost and just looking for the end? What would you say to them that may not have maybe that intestinal fortitude that today, looking back, you can impart some life and wisdom and energy into them as part of the community at large of the world?
Thank you. So I would say, because the title of our time here is Homeless to Hopeful, and I want to bring up the hopeful piece and say to you that those of you listening and watching, I honestly can't say that I even had a lot of fortitude when I was going through. I mean, I had like an inner resilience, but I'm just going to be real here. I can't say. I mean, there's times when I had said, I don't think I want to live, and
Mm.
so that's the real deal about it.
Mm-hmm. No,
And
but I want to sit there for I want you to sit there for a second, because though you felt that, many maybe won't articulate it, but you know
yeah,
it's in there. And I
you know
think to
it's
your
in
point,
there.
yes, and to your point is that was your reality.
It was my reality. And I think what happens is, what I would say to anyone, watching this, there's no formula for anything. And what one person has experienced, it may not be the solution for you. It just may not be, because we all have our different journeys. But I have a statement. I don't know, and I said this here, David, but the statement that I use is, your pain has a mission attached to it. And all I'm saying to you is that no matter what you're going through, today can seem so dire and like, I don't know, I don't feel hopeful. All that word is okay, but that don't mean anything to me right now. And all I want to say is, give it another day.
Mm.
Give it another day. And then when you wake up and you have that next day and you go, okay, maybe I can go forward another step. Here's my other thing. Give it another day.
Mm. That's powerful, because really, again, it's those simple things. Sometimes you want a get well quick, you know, formula, or you want to get a get rich quick scheme, or you want something just to do it fast, right? We live in a fast food environment, fast world, everything quick. I don't want to wait. I don't want to delay this. I want this to happen right now. And something to be said about the fact of just understanding that you are just like any other woman out there. All things considered, you're like any other man out there. You didn't have it all together. There's no
No.
secret power that you had. But again, this is how we break the stigma of, yeah, you're seeing the hopeful. You see the doctor, you see the PhD, you see that the accolades, you see the book. But that journey from homeless to hopeful, it was day by day. And some days were good, and some days were not. But the power of what you spoke about too is one, your faith, your belief, and your community. And there's a power in understanding that, like you said, that I want to highlight again is you were in a daze, you were outside your house, and some folks had to kind of help you direct you back.
They did. And and each time that happened, it was someone that I would have least suspected. First time was a little older woman, a Hispanic lady, who said, "I don't ever take strangers into my house, but you're standing on this corner. There's a street here. I guess if people in Colorado Springs, a street called Nevada, you're standing on this street here. So would you come home?" And all she did, I couldn't even talk. Or the Vietnamese couple who invited me in, or the person that would say, "Hey, can I just bring you something?" So I would say this: what I'm learning continually, because I have not learned it all. I have not. And again, I don't try to be funny when I say this, but I'm like, whatever is in front of your name, whatever letters are behind your name, that doesn't define who you are and what you've experienced in life. just always remember that you have value, you have worth. And I appreciate the military. I want to say this here that thank you all for your service. I sincerely mean that. I'm so grateful for you. And I tried to go into the military twice and got refused. And I was like, I'm not strong enough. And then now I get to be around predominantly 80% of the time people in the military. So thank you for your service. Give it another day, give it another moment, give it another try.
Thank you for that, because I think this is truly, and that's why I appreciate it. One, you being real, sharing your story, and really just highlighting that you've experienced adversity and pain, both psychological, physical, relational, over the years, and just when you thought it was going to be all right, life knocked you down and kicked your teeth out. Just again, physically, literally, or metaphorically, you've had these
Yeah.
things happen to you over and over. But to your point, all that pain, all that suffering, all that trauma that you were able to go through today has given you the ability to impact those that maybe don't have the skill set to do that. And again, it's
Um,
literally the fact that you were able to go through. Now you can speak life and be part of the community to help somebody else. And I think there's a power in that, right? Putting that all aside and being able to just be real to get healed. I love that.
Can I say one quick thing
Yeah.
too? And I want to say to the veterans, never again shame off you. Just remember that. Because I had a master's degree and I was standing in line at a food pantry to get food. I want to say that. It didn't matter. I had a bachelor's degree and I'm trying to get my utilities paid. I'm needing some assistance. I'm needing to go to the Salvation Army and get help. But all of that, every time I'd walk away with another bag of groceries or needing bus fare, it again fortified in me the whole human experience of, again, we don't have to be ashamed. We just have to know that every experience has a value attached to it. It doesn't mean it doesn't have pain attached, but it has a value attached to it.
And that's powerful, because again, I just love the fact that it's tactical advice and information, not something pulled out of a book randomly. This is truly life, and being real and being honest and being raw. And it's not flowery. It's not a flowery road.
Mm-mm.
However, you're still here,
Still here.
day
And
by day, but you're still here.
yeah, still here talking with you, able to hopefully impart some, encouragement. And I want to just share one last
Yeah.
thing here about the hopeful part. Here's the thing about hopefulness is that I think about storms and tornadoes and all of that. It uproots things and it does a lot of damage. But the reality of it is that remains after a storm, literally now you know how to fortify it even better.
Mm. That I think that's literally been the picture that we've painted of your life. That as things got more difficult, you were able to continue to take a step forward, but that was also built from all the things that you've gone through in your life. I want to highlight again the book. It's on Amazon. The Colors of Culture: The Beauty of Diverse Friendships. Is available. We will be giving a few of these away, signed copies, so we'll have information available for those, for folks to look at that. Again, that book by Dr. Melinda Joy Mingo, her story, the things you've been through. I just wanted just to thank you, one, for spending this time with me and holding this space, for sounding off and truly telling your story, but also being real and open and being able to
Thank you.
unveil those pieces that people need to see, because someone can identify and say, well, if Dr. Mingo can do it, I can do it. And that's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to in those tactical things that you've shared today. I love the fact that we can kind of just highlight those points and those phrases, because it gives someone an action to take. Um, Usually when we kind of wrap these up, I usually would ask, for our guests and ourselves to kind of have a parting thought or something to share, for someone out there, because there's always someone who may be hurting. So given the timeliness of your book and what's happening in the world, and people, regardless of where you may sit or what your views may be, people are hurting on all sides of the equation, and may not have hope. And I think hopefully the message of going from homeless to hopeful and being that a journey and example for some is inspiring. But for those out there, Dr. Mingo, in your parting thoughts, what would you say to those that may be hurting right now, and just not in a good place?
I would say if you're hurried and you're not in a good place, you don't have to feel like you have to explain that to everybody. Number one, give yourself permission to be a human being. Number two, give yourself permission to walk through the pain. And then lastly, give yourself permission to walk through a door of hope as
Mm.
well.
I appreciate that. That's really honoring and just being still in what's happening and walking through it. 'Cause I think sometimes there has to be a processing that has to happen to not negate what's really happening in this moment. To your point, it was so powerful sitting at the foot of your journey and really being able to
Yeah.
appreciate that. I think is a powerful thing for many people that can hopefully begin to just take that as an action item. Begin to look at what has happened, in your past, what led to this point. What are all those lessons? Because there's someone else out there who may not have the resiliency or the ability to put those things together. And there's a part of your story that hopefully now helps someone else. And that's how we
Yes.
begin to do this as a community. In
Mm.
my closing thoughts, I would always say that there are those out there who you would never think about, you know, as being folks that are hurting. Check on your strong friends. Check on the ones that
That's
never reach
right.
out, the ones that are always having it together, and you wouldn't expect them to be like Dr. Mingo living in their car. They show up, they teach, they're writing a book. Things are, aesthetically correct. Everything is fine. Yet you don't realize that when they drive away, they have nowhere to go. They may not have a meal. Psychologically, they're dealing
Mm.
with pain. Those are the
Yeah.
things that are happening for many right now. So check on each other. Community is what this is all about, and if we can at least each one teach one, each one reach one, that really begins the process. But I want to definitely call out the gems you dropped today, Dr. Mingo. you know, Not faking it till you're making it, but being real to be
Mhm.
healed. I think that is an amazing, amazing point there, and not shame on you, but shame off of you. Are tactical
Yes.
things that I think that will benefit so many. Dr. Mingo, this cannot be the first. I mean, this cannot be the last. It'll be the first, but we have got to come back and have another conversation because
Yes.
there's so much
Thank
to
you.
unpack. But I think this is a good overview just to begin the dialogue of this journey, because that journey that you've been through and the things that you've experienced, I think it's a message that has to be said. I want to definitely highlight your book, but your story and your realness is beyond what really I think is impressive to me, because many have gone through a lot, but they'll never share that. Right? They've been through a lot and they've had a crazy journey, but they'll never tell you what that journey was. And holding that back does nothing because it's behind you now. You're here. The fact is, those things didn't destroy you, they didn't take you down. You're still here. So now that story can either be locked away and help no one, but haunt you in your memories should you have a down day, or inspire others and help them. So I commend and I appreciate your openness today in sharing with us your life, the things you've been through, and the lessons. So I need to bring you on back.
Yeah, I would love to. And I want to say to you, talking with you has been soothing to my soul. And what I mean by that is you're real. Sometimes, I'm on interviews and people want to hear all the good stuff and whatever. I get that. But I just know in my heart, talking with you, I felt that I have found, a community, a friend here that I could share, that I wouldn't be judged telling my stories. And you said something that made me think. I just quickly say this. You made me think when you said, we look at people and we think they're, because they have a book or whatever, they could be all dressed up and just got something from a Goodwill or the art, dressed to the T, but they go back to a car and they're alone and they lock a door and they start all over again. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be real here.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for everyone that joined us. We'll be back with another edition of Sound Off. Dr. Melinda Joy Mingo, thank you for your work. Thank you for your mission, what you're doing, and the book that you've written, which we know will help so many that we'll be sharing with our community as well. You're part of the community now, so you can't get out. We'll talk soon again. Take care, everybody.